Hello everyone, Rare Model Reviews here, and today we'll be reviewing the Tamashi Nation's anime, LaGowe, from Gundam Seed. So this is one of my favorite designs from the Gundam Seed series, if not just Gundam Seed itself. And with me growing up with a lot of earlier anime in the early 2000s, Zoids was a big one. Me and my brother used to love Zoids, especially Liger Zero, all the different configurations. So this thing immediately called to me as like some sort of Gundam version of a Zoid. And I just love that part of Seed where they were in the desert fighting the Bakus or whatnot. Because it always kind of felt like a Gundam versus Zoids type of thing. I just ate this thing up. So I do not recall them ever making a model kit of the Baku, let alone the LaGowe. So with me always trying to find an excuse to get some more of the obscure designs of the series, or Gundam series rather, this was just like a big excuse for me to get this thing. And it's just so strange. It's just like, it feels like it's all Gundam Seed stuff where there's like these suits and mobile armors and whatnot that I swear never got a model kit release. And here's the Tamashi Nations here giving them the shine they deserve. Now I gotta kind of go through their catalog and see if they have a core booster, because that's just one of my favorites from the original series, and I'd love to have that thing in my collection, because right now my only alternative seems to be through figures or getting the original model kit from Bandai all the way back from the late 70s, early 80s. I'm not sure if I want to do that, especially because you need to glue that thing, and it's probably going to be pretty lackluster. But moving on, as per standard, this thing just amazingly colored, sculpted. Everything here looks just grand. The only issue I could really say with coloring, I'm not sure if you guys will be able to make that out, and that's going to be on the turret here. Actually, I could take this off and make it a little easier to see. But right here, this looks like this is supposed to be where a scope is or something, and there's just nothing there. So I'm going to probably have to go back and figure out what color this scope should be, if this is supposed to be like a scope, and color that in, because it just feels like something's missing, you know. But besides that, everything else here looks just fine. It might not blend in too well with a model kit from the Gundam series, but it looked just fine with all the other Tamashi Nation stuff and even figures, really, that you might have in your collection. Of course, I have my other two Seed figures, or yeah, I guess you call them figures. And I'll show them off at the end of the review for a good size comparison and my verdict. So we're going to get into the articulation of this thing now. And boys, it's going to be a bit of a doozy, because this is the most interesting thing I've ever reviewed, hands down. And the articulation is going to be just as interesting. So I guess since we're already kind of looking at it, we have the waist here. Oops. It bends in kind of a strange way, as you can see there from like the waist, I guess you'd call that. It kind of pivots at the end here. It's just like so hard to again review this thing. It's just so interesting. But you can see there from that part kind of wiggles, and it kind of wiggles at this part here at the top too. If you see where my thumb is, there's a bit of it. Well, pretty good app crunch as well. So when we're looking at it, the turret can go, whoops, it can go 360. The thing is, this thing's on very loosely, so it falls off very easily. Sounds like it snaps in pretty secure, but it usually still falls off a lot. But I'm not getting this on frame at all. So as you can see, there has some articulation. Cannons would be able to go just about anywhere. It's just the fact it's got kind of obstructed by the suit's body itself. You can even call it like a suit. I'm going to be doing this thing totally backwards here, but I'm going to take the turret off. I think I'll be able to get a bit better leg articulation if we do. So the leg can go a wide variety of ways here, and has some wiggle as well, whatnot. So there's quite a bit of articulation with the legs, so you can do a lot with this thing's legs. Get all kinds of crazy leaping, flying like poses with this thing, having this thing soaring and lunging and what have you. It could bend in pretty far down, but that's more so for the transformation. Some toe movement. There's no wiggle or anything from it. The toe just kind of goes up and down. That's really it. Again, you can even have this thing standing completely up, kind of like a bear would or something. So, again, there's a lot you could do with this thing's legs. Same with the front legs here, too. Same deal. No, I guess you call this a wrist or ankle type. Well, actually, that kind of does wiggle a little bit. Now that I look at it, yeah, it's a teensy bit wiggle with it, too. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Me not doing my due diligence with this thing here, but the front legs are a bit more restricted than the rare ones, in my opinion. I feel like these ones have a bit more articulation than the front legs, but they also have a bit of wiggle here as well. believe I showed it off with the back legs too, or hind legs, I guess you'd call those, huh? So again, you can move this thing. Whoop, I am not doing this on camera. What's wrong with me today? So some good 360 here. I think I showed off the rare ones too. Now I'm gonna show it off now. So you can kind of move the legs 360, just about all of them. And again, it's just you can get a lot of crazy poses on this thing due to this articulation being so free. You know, like you really can do some crazy stuff with this thing. Now the wings, of course, are a bit more restricted. Just really go up and down. You can get a bit more variety in how you move the wings with the turn off, but when you put the turn on, things get a bit more restricted with the wings, as you kind of got to really lift them up super high in the air and kind of get them out of the way to even be able to get the turn up, and even, the wings up, and even then the turn would probably end up knocking it off or something anyway. So again, it's still not bad all the same, like, because again, this is just such a unique design. And I just love that you have this little holes on the bottom of the neck. And it's like painted in silver there. And it's just like, oops. Did not mean to take that off. There's a bit of articulation at the neck here. It almost appears to move at each and every one of these little spinal rivets there in the neck. So this thing's movement is pretty darn good. I'll play around with this thing a little too much. As you can see, this little piece here at the top will come off. So you got to be careful with that. You don't want to break any of this stuff here. Some delicate areas. But overall, that's just about it for articulation. So I'm going to put everything back into place here. Make sure this thing stood up well enough. And we are going to go ahead and get into the accessories. All right. So for accessories here, we have the standard build you would have for Tamashi Nation's figure. And that, of course, is going to be some variety of thrusters here. Now, I'm pretty sure all 5 of these are the same, but this one always makes me feel like it's for the actual main thruster in a rare of the LaGowe here. I could be wrong. I kind of looked at them. They all look the same, but just to be sure, I always kind of keep this one in a center just so I make sure that they all go in the right thruster, so there's no nonsense. These, of course, are going to be 2 of the most interesting beam effects I've ever seen. So if you notice here, the in here that's kind of like from the that fires from the barrel, it's like a solid green, kind of a bit more standard on, well, no, not really. It's hard to describe this, man. It's just this, again, it's so unique. It's like, I don't know, it's like a solid green here, but then it's like at the end of it here, it's like, again, more of a standard fluorescent, I guess you would say, clearish beam effect. So I really like this effect. It looks very interesting. It honestly kind of gives off the presence of it firing a bit more, in my opinion. Now, this is where things get really interesting, and that's going to be with the beam blades here for the sabers on this thing's mouth. These are kind of just some flat-ended beam effects, some that you would see on kits, like Turn A Gundam. Turn A Gundam kind of has a more like katanas more than sabers. And then these ones, they have like, it's probably going to be hard for you guys to tell, but there's like a bit of a curve to it there. If you can make that out, each of them have like this curve, and that's for each end of the mouth. And so this gives the LaGowe more effect of it having a curved saber in its mouth as opposed to just straight ones. I'll show that off in a bit. So let's go and get into it. So for accessories, I guess we'll start out strong here with the beam effects for the turrets. So pretty simple. You just wiggle those right on inside the barrel of the guns, and voila. Now you have the effect of LaGowe firing this beam turret here. So very cool, very simple. You get a fantastic result. And if you get some black lighting going, I imagine this thing will look just fantastic. So very happy with this thing. That's one of the things I love about these figures. If you want your Gundam suits to really look just as dynamic as possible, you can't go wrong with Tamashi Nations, as although you don't get the joy of building these things per se. There's a few parts you have to build here and there, like putting a turret on, assembling this top of the head, which is hence why this thing keeps falling off. But you know, you don't get the painstaking whole experience of, you know, building a kit bit by bit. This thing's a few things need to be assembled, but that's about it. You know, some assembly required. I guess we'll go ahead and get into the thrusters now. Again, just as simple as what you do with the beam cannon. You just wiggle those on into each individual thruster here. And again, I'm pretty sure none of the effects for the thrusters matter. I'm almost positive they all can go in just about any order or way you want. It's just, again, the way these things were set up in a box. The one they have for the middle main thruster, it was kind of set up in a box almost just like this. So it always kind of made me feel like this one was unique to the middle one. Probably not, but just in case, I'm going to do it anyway. So as you can see here now, this thing looks super dynamic. All these thrusters and beam effects on it, but that's not it. We, of course, have the beam sabers in its mouth here. So you go ahead and just squeeze these on in like so. And now you have it with the beam saber effect here. And as I said before, these ones are just for having it more straight-like. However, if you want to do something a bit more dynamic, I'm going to show it this way just because I know one of you guys are probably going to see it interchanged or whatever. This also gives you a better way for you to kind of compare and contrast. But as you can see here, these ones are a bit more curved. So I'm not sure what the whole point of them being curved is. I'm sure there's some sort of advantage to them being curved, but yeah, it's there if you want to have one curved or one straight or any kind of variety in between these effect parts. And again, it just looks so cool. Like, that was, again, one of the main things I love about the LaGowe, the fact they even have little beam sabers in the mouth, kind of like a ninja hound or something would. And this thing just looks so cool. I do not believe this thing has any kind of thing that would any exclusive piece that kind of like put on an action base or something. I'm sure you probably could pull something off. I'll probably go grab something and test something out off camera and see if I can pull it off. And of course, if I can, I'll show it off. Otherwise, I'll probably come back disappointed and tell you guys no, it didn't work out. But again, this just looks so cool. Just to have this thing flying through the air, all these different beam effect parts or whatnot. Like, this thing just immediately, I was impressed by just by doing all of this. But of course, that's not it. They don't necessarily show you how you're supposed to transform this thing. It's kind of something you would kind of have to really figure out yourself. But basically, all you would do to quote unquote transform this thing is just kind of manipulate the legs in a way that gets the this thing kind of laid down on the caterpillar treads it has here. And again, this is more or less be how it looked like, quote unquote transformed. You kind of have to really kind of pose this thing well enough to get everything flush on the ground, which is a little tough to do. But again, this is more or less how it would look like on its land-based form when it wants to get around on the caterpillar tread. So again, very cool. I love this thing so much, and I can definitely say right now I do not regret it at all. So I'll give you guys a bit of my final verdicts after I stand this thing back up. And like I said, see if I could get this thing with an action base, and we'll do the final verdict and the size comparison. So to answer you guys' question, yes, you indeed can get this thing on an action stand. I am using this Chinese action stand that's based off of the Action Base 6 that Bandai has out. So as you can see, I could kind of just wrap this thing around the waist and it stands up pretty well. So if you want to get this thing airborne, you indeed can. Now, I do not want to go crazy with this thing and have it fall off on camera. So I'm going to go ahead and get him down. And we're going to go ahead and do a quick size comparison, followed by, of course, a final verdict from me. So I'm going to bring a lot of stuff out here. I guess the first thing I will do, after I stand this thing back up, of course, is pulls it off next to a master grade. I feel like that's kind of the main one. You guys are probably want to see this thing next to a master grade. See how that stands up. And speaking of standing up, I do not have this thing standing up. I still have them as dynamic pulls. But as you can see here, I'm going to have to change there we go. I mean, do I even really need to stand him up? You can already see kind of the scaling here. He looks quite a bit bigger than LaGowe, but it is a beast. It's not going to be standing up on its hind legs there, so that's just going to be a bit of a size difference regardless. So we're going to get this beautiful master grade out of the frame and put it next to something a bit more of its scale and size. That's going to be the Gundam Universe figure. So this thing looks a bit more accurate. I'm pretty sure this thing's more of a 144-ish scale. So this would be a bit more of an accurate representation of how this thing will look like scale-wise. And of course, with these both being action figures, they look a bit better being together as the more the same kind of plastic. So of course, we're now going to go and pull off something from the same line, Tamashi Nations, and that's going to be the Q. So not the Q, the Sugyu. These things all have such similar names. So these, of course, are both Zap suits, and they're both from, like I said, Tamashi Nations anime line, so they look a lot better together. And for the hell of it, we're going to go ahead and throw the Zero in there just to really kind of complete the lineup. So again, these look more in line with each other. They all look right being together. The Gundam Universe, of course, I believe it's Bandai. It's just not Tamashi Nations, but again, it's still figures, so they look well enough together. So that's why I decided to bring this thing out. It's usually about the only reason why I bring this thing out for other figures, especially with the Gundam Seed line here. But that's really it. I really don't have anything much else. I believe I missed out on this thing. Again, if you guys didn't get the impression earlier, I'm going to say it again. I highly recommend this guy. Amazing figure. This was a P-Bandai exclusive, but I didn't mention that earlier, so I will point that out. I do not believe it was too expensive. It was probably around $70 tops. I could be wrong. Maybe it might have went to $90, but I don't believe it was too expensive. Regardless of the price, it's definitely worth it. In my opinion, all of these Tamashi Nations things are worth it. A lot of stuff I end up getting this from P-Bandai, but they do, of course, have more standard releases. So if you're curious about anything they have, look it up. eBay, Amazon, wherever you usually get your kits and figures from, I'm sure you'll be able to find something. If you really want this thing, again, look it up on eBay or something. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Otherwise, you probably wait for it on P-Bandai. I'm sure they'll eventually bring it back. None of the stuff I've ordered, I've seen back on there so far, but I really don't have anything else to really add to this matter here. I said all I need to say about this thing, about it being great posability, having great accessories. They all do, in my opinion. Actually, one thing I'm going to do real quick before we end this, I meant to do this earlier, but I was curious about the Zero's thrusters here. I want to know if these things will fit in the LaGowe's thrusters as well, so we'll see. I was getting nervous about taking these things off. I usually spin them off, but it takes so long to spin them off. I was wondering, should I be pulling them or what? So we're going to try to put this in here, see if this will fit. I don't know if it's too big or not. Nah. This port isn't deep enough, I think. Or maybe, I think these are the same connections. Just the fact this is so big, it doesn't quite fit in. So you can kind of have it pushed up against it, but it won't quite fit in. So yeah, there we go. So that answers that question. You cannot get that thing's accessory in there. And again, so I have some time to kill. I'm just gonna try a few other beam of accessory effects, see if they fit in as well. So this is from the Zero as well. So you can't get that one in there. So if you want to have them shoot off some very big exaggerated beam from this turret here, you can do that. So very interesting. Actually, I guess I'll take this one off. And I think it might be able to fit this one on too. Let's see. Yep. Yeah, and of course you want to have a little baby, yeah, little beam effect. Kind of looks more like a cannon shell almost. You can do that. So now you know the beam effect, the parts you can interchange, just not the thrusters on this thing. So very interesting. So again, another reason why you'd want to get these things is the fact that you even interchange some of these beam effect parts. So if you want to do a kit badge or a custom kind of design of your own, maybe you want to color this thing a different color or something like that, you can do that. So again, now I'm going to end this thing for real. Of course, as per standard, if you guys like what you're seeing, please like and comment, subscribe. I have plenty of reviews already up on my channel, and there's always more coming. And you should try to upload at least once a week. Usually I do twice if I have something to unbox. So again, stick around. Maybe you'll see something you like that you haven't seen around before that you were very curious about. So take care, you guys, and thank you so much for watching.